My name is Joe Dalton, entrepreneur and business coach. Welcome to Breakthrough Brands. Each week we bring you an inspirational story and an insight to the minds of some of the top business leaders, authors and mentors from around the globe. Whatever is needed to make you shine in life and business, you'll find it here. Over the years, I've had the pleasure to interview hundreds of people on my business shows, Breakthrough Brands and Business Eye. In doing so, I've put together my top 10 tips that I've picked up from my guests along the way. To discover what these are and how they may benefit you in your business, please click on the link below or go to joedalton.ie/discover.
On today's show, we have ARK Fitzpatrick. Eric is the owner of ARK Speaking and Training and the author of Persuade on Purpose. He is a sales presentations expert and a corporate storytelling expert who works with organizations to help them communicate their message in a manner that is clear, compelling and concise.
Eric Fitzpatrick, welcome to Breakthrough Brands. How are you, my friend?
I'm very good, Joe. Thank you for having me.
I'm delighted. Your book landed on my kitchen table a couple of months ago, and it was given to my wife from you. She was at one of your training courses, and she passed on the book, and I had a little read through it. And from there, we reached out on LinkedIn, and I said, "Look, let's have a chat."
We've eventually got together.
We did, yes.
Going back and forth for a while.
I think there was a bit of a miscommunication, as some said. I think I asked Sean, or I forgot or something, but that's normal. Where did it all start for yourself? Why did you get into the business that you're in, and at what age did you decide that you wanted to take the path?
Probably two reasons for that. First of all, I worked in sales for many, many years.
Yeah.
I grew sales significantly for a UK company here in Ireland one particular year. And at the end of that year, the company said, "You better come over and tell us what you did." And I went over and shared ideas with them. And at the end of that year, their sales went up by 30%. And I found I liked the idea of standing in front of people and sharing this information with them. And then I delivered two really bad presentations one day, went completely pear-shaped, and I decided I had to do something about it. And I got involved with an organisation that I'm sure you're familiar with, an organisation called Toastmasters.
Yes.
And
yes.
The combination of the two of them came together in 2009. I sold my interest in the business in the UK, and I decided to set up a training business right in the middle of a recession. It seemed like a good idea at the time.
Presentations. You go into an organisation and you show them how to present. Do you show them how to do a sales presentation, or do you show people how to stand up in front of an audience and give confidence in how they present? So that's what I'm
No, Joe, for me, it's all about clarity of message. And I think nearly every presentation is a sales presentation. It's about stopping and thinking about your audience from the perspective of, at the end of your talk, what do you want them to do? What do you want them to think? How do you want them to act? What do you want them to believe? And I think a lot of times people create presentations and they're focused on themselves and this confidence thing. When the reality is, I think they should be focused on the message they want to get across, being clear about the objective of that presentation. And I'm going to do this on radio, it won't work for radio, but you can picture that anybody who stands to give a presentation is an expert. So my hands are wide out here, and they've that amount of knowledge, and they've that amount of time. They've only a significantly shorter period of time. So it's about being able to choose the right pieces of content to justify that message, to be able to get the audience to buy into it.
So I believe there's two types of presentations, and look, you can argue with me on this. I think there's a sales presentation, and I think there's a presentation when you're talking to a group of people. Both, yes, have the same result. They're both sales, but both should be slightly different, because a sales presentation, if you're asking questions in a sales presentation, that can be a presentation in itself, and you are fact-finding and you're getting that information, but you are sort of delivering a different it's a different angle on it. Right or wrong?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. They are both sales presentations. Ultimately, it's about engaging the people that you're speaking with. And as you rightly point out, sometimes a sales presentation could be sitting across a boardroom from three people, and as part of it, you are asking questions and you're looking for the answers that they can provide. But even when you're standing in front of a group of 100 people or 100 individuals, you're still looking to insert into your presentation elements that will allow people to remember what you said long after you've said it.
Clauses.
Yes. But even, and Sometime, I mean, for example, I was talking to somebody this morning and I heard her give a speech back in May of this year. And I can still remember elements of her talk. And on the strength of that, I'm able to get back to her message. And you know as well as I do, Joe, from a sales presentation perspective, people don't make the decision there and then. Sometimes the 3 members of the board will go off a week later and sit down and talk about your proposal. And the challenge we have is how do we make sure they can remember what we said a week after we've been in with them?
Yeah.
And that, for me, means keeping people engaged. So what I do is I look at the idea of asking a question as an element in a talk that has the potential to keep somebody engaged. So whether that's 3 people across a boardroom table or it's 100 people in the room, they are sales presentations from my perspective.
What makes you good at what you do?
I think a lot of it comes down to practice. I really do. It's, you know it as well, from a sales perspective. You go and you have a conversation with somebody one day, you walk out and you learn from that and you get better at it. Yeah. And certainly from my perspective, I've coached people and walked away afterwards and gone, oh, maybe I could have done it this way if I was doing it differently, and then learned that and applied that to the next time.
Yeah, I would also agree with it, because I think it's every time we do a training course and any time we coach people, we learn from it.
Yes.
I'm a mentor, I'm a coach, but I have a mentor and a coach as well. And I'm sure, I always laugh that we all have mentors and coaches, and everyone has mentor coaches. And I wonder, is there a guy that I'm mentoring? He's mentoring the guy that I'm mentoring. And it's just a big
there's almost an element. Can we just keep going right around? Get the guy
right back to the guy. So he's actually giving me my advice, but just different. Yeah, Chinese whispers.
Well, listen, one of the things from my perspective, and I've been doing this a long time, very easy, as you've identified, if we're careless about it, it'd be very easy to reach a point where you stop and think, I've cracked it and I have it sorted.
No,
I'm currently doing a stand-up comedy course.
Really?
Yeah, and I want to be outside of my comfort zone. I want to learn some new skills. I want to be able to do better interaction with audiences, and I want to get up and do that routine at the end of it, knowing that I am very uncomfortable when I'm standing up in advance of it.
Yeah, no, I do like a bit of comedy, and the people that I speak to know that I'm very humorous. So, with yourself, Eric, and we've established that it's about going and you're helping people with their presentations, but it's more than that.
My primary focus is on helping people to find the right message. Because one of the fears that I think a lot of people have, and one of the things that drains their confidence, is they're afraid of rambling. They're afraid that what they're going to say doesn't have sufficient value. And where I help is being able to help people identify what they need to say and to craft that in a way that'll be compelling for the audience they're presenting to. And I think that's where the confidence comes from, because they stand up knowing that they now have the right message and it's structured in the right way and it'll resonate with the audience they're speaking to. I'll give you one very quick example. I was helping somebody in Galway about 5 or 6 weeks ago. It was a 2-minute pitch she was working on, and we actually spent 16 hours on the pitch. But apart from the success that she had when she delivered it, we had a follow-up call a couple of days after she had delivered it, and she told me that she had a presentation coming up a week later and was now looking forward to it. But I don't work on people's confidence per se. It's about getting them out of their own heads to a certain extent, because we get wrapped up, we create our own problems when it comes to presentations. We think we have to be perfect. We think that our audience is waiting for us to screw up. We think that we can't afford to put a foot wrong in any way, shape or form. And what I'll say to people, I've had conversations with people after they deliver presentations, and somebody said, well, it wasn't perfect. And I go, did you get your message across? And they go, yeah. I go, that's the job. And if at the end of it, one person out of 100 comes up to you and goes, that was fantastic, can you come in and do that in my organisation? That's the job done.
If you ever go into our kitchen, I have on the wall, and I have mindset, marketing, and sales, and that's what I talk about. And then I have, so they're the 3 pillars, and then I have 5 elements in each. Yes. And I used to see them all the time, and that's all I use in my mind. And then depending on the conversation, that's where it leads out to on it. And I remember when I started doing radio, maybe 2 years now. I remember the first time I was walking up and down the corridor here going, what the hell am I doing?
Yes.
Why did I say I was going to do this? And I actually enjoy it. Yes. I actually love it. So what I'm trying to figure out, I would say I've no ego. I don't really care what other people think. You know, it is, I am who I am. But am I doing it because of ego? Am I doing it because I'm trying to sell my wares?
Well, I think what happens is, if you take speaking as the example, we go through stages. Stage 1, I'm scared of this. So you decide, will I do something about it or will I accept that that's where I am? And a lot of people decide they're going to do something about it. after a while, they get some skills, to get a little bit of confidence. And you're right, ego does play a part. There is a period of time during this process when people think, look at me, I'm great. But then I think when you're doing it long enough, you get to a point where you recognise that it's not about you, it's about your audience, and it's about the message that you're offering them. And certainly, Joe, somebody like you is offering value to people every time you stand in front of them. And whether that's somebody walking away going, I need to get more of this, or it's somebody walking away going, I picked up one thing today from what that guy said.
Just one thing,
and and I can use that, and that's where I'm going to benefit.
Yeah.
From my perspective.
They're all writing down.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you know, today, and the way it has changed, you see a lot of people on their phones. I remember the first time it happened thinking, are they not paying attention to me? And then you find social media is alight with all the stuff that people are posting.
Yeah,
and I think the whole thing is just evolving constantly.
It's like it was funny, I was speaking to an audience, the Trim Business Association there a couple of weeks ago, and I had 13 in the room, but I had 23 online watching it. So, you know, that's before it would be 13 in a room and that was it.
Yes.
But the other 23 couldn't make it because of the weather, and they were all online watching it at the same time.
I'm going to say one of the most challenging gigs I had recently. I was in France, but there was people in Germany, Brazil, and in 2 other locations in the world as well. And we're sitting across the table talking to each other, and then suddenly you got to go, hang on a second, can I make sure, can he hear me what he's saying over there?
Yeah,
and it changes dynamic. But if you go back to what you said, the more you do this, the more confident you get, the more you're able to handle things when they become a little bit pear-shaped, or the more you're able to adjust when something different gets presented to you.
Yes. Like I remember the first one I ever did, and I remember it felt like a car crash. Felt like a complete car crash. There was very little people in the audience, and I started laughing because I should have just went down and talked to the 4 people. Yeah. And there was one guy, and he was just staring at me, and I was going, oh my God, everyone else is taking notes, and there's this one guy not liking what I'm doing. So I was focusing my energy on him, and I was focused on him, and it was actually Pat Slattery.
Okay, yes.
And you know, and I went over to him, and he says, he says, good speech. I says, it was a car crash. He says, it was good. He says, you have to, and what he said to me was, you have to remember one thing. No one knows if your speech is good or bad.
Yeah.
They just to know the delivery of it.
Yeah.
You will only think that it's good or bad.
Yeah.
And I kind of went, yeah, you're right on that, yeah. And then I went home and practice, and then got really. Yeah. Then the next one I did was
better,
standing ovation and mind blowing and average, But I remember just laughing to myself. You know, it was so, and that's the thing.
And even that, as you said, you're standing in front of a room of 100 people, and you're looking out, and 99 people seem totally engaged, and there's one person in the corner. And it takes a bit of practice to get to the point where you go, right, if you're not paying attention, I'm going to ignore you, as opposed to I'm going to get you.
Yeah. But it was funny.
And actually, as well, sometimes that person, they've enjoyed it just as much as everybody else. They just didn't tell their face while you were talking.
Yeah, and that's it. And it's even, and I understand people's perception, because I was doing another gig in one of the embassies there, and we were on a panel of experts, and I sat down, and it was Q&A, and there was 4 of us sitting down, and this is so funny, this really sort of clicked on me. All of them had paper out and notes, and I didn't. Yeah. And I was going, oh my God, everyone has papers and notes out. Should I? Oh no, I can't reach into my bag here and grab the notes. And I didn't. But afterwards, the others were saying to me, oh my God, we seen you had no notes, and we were trying to put ours away. So I was going, oh yeah, okay, well, that's
we do
it.
that, don't we?
Yeah.
You look at somebody else and go, oh, maybe I should. And you go, no, what you're doing is great. It's
what you're
grand.
doing. So do you help people with the sales process as well, or do you just, is a presentation that you help them with? I'm trying to clarify that for the audience.
I have helped organisations with sales process. It's not something that I actively push.
You're more unique on it, yeah.
And I suppose from a sales perspective, it's really about sales communication. Again, with your experience, Joe, you know there are times when salespeople walk into meetings and it's like a vomitarium. They just shove out as much as they can, hoping some of it's going to stick. And even when they get to a point where they have enough confidence to have a conversation and ask questions and make it two-way, there are still times when what they're presenting isn't strong enough. And one of the areas where I help is being able to help people to craft something that is more concise, that is clearer, and is more compelling.
Elevator pitch. Are you doing for small SMEs, helping them with their elevator pitch? A lot of these people who get into startups, can't sell are being pushed into sales
Yes.
because they've never sold, and suddenly they now have to learn how to give a presentation.
Yeah.
And is that part? Some of them, that presentation is looking for a couple of million.
Yes.
On it. Yeah.
I helped in that area. The one I was talking about a little earlier, the 2 minutes that took 16 hours, this was somebody who was going to England to try and persuade organisations to come and do business over here. And I suppose in some way it was an elevator pitch, but I think the difference, I would be very reluctant to coach anybody to create a 2-minute pitch that says, this is who we are and this is what we do. By contrast, this woman that I worked with had a very specific purpose for delivering her 2 minutes. And at the end of it, she had people come up to her and said, can we book time to come over and see Galway based on what you've said, which is grand.
Yeah.
And I think, and this probably, and again, you're very familiar with this, too often people talk about themselves, their product, their service.
Me.
It's all about me, and don't understand why an audience doesn't react to it.
Yeah, because I always believe you should put a you and you use a you, and because in somewhere in it, because
Yes.
you're relating to the people on it, and the uniqueness. Like when I get people to say, look, everyone in your industry is saying A.
Yes.
Let's figure out what you're saying is B.
Yes.
And stand up. And if B is against everyone, let's go with that.
Yeah.
And only if it resonates and it's passionate within inside yourself as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I was working with somebody recently, and they were talking about their product, their service, and all of that. And I said, what problems are you solving for people? Let's have a chat about them. Let's talk about the problems that you're solving for people, and then people might start to be a little bit more interested.
Yeah. So you're helping people. I've seen seasoned sales teams go in to do presentations, and they just have gone in and again talked about their product, haven't asked the person any questions, have just gone in and gone, this is what we do, this is it, it's brilliant. And I go, this is terrible. You haven't asked the people one thing about their business, and then you haven't directed your presentation to the questions that they have.
Yeah.
Is it a common thing?
Yeah.
Even
I think there are a couple of things. I think, first of all, historically, what you've described is exactly what people have done. So because people coming along today have seen it, that's how it's done, they carry on doing that. And then you have, respectfully to some organisations, they turn and say, this is how we do things. But they're not generating the results that they want. And then the other side of it is, from a presenter's perspective, you could probably divide presenters into 3 categories. The newbies who are very, very nervous about it, the people who are very, very good at it, whether it's taken them a couple of years or many, many years, and then you have a group in the middle. And again, respectfully, a lot of salespeople fit into this category. They get to a point where they're giving presentations and they're quite comfortable doing it, and because of that, they think they're giving good presentations.
No.
And if you said to them, how did it go? They go, oh, it was brilliant. You ask their audience the same thing, and they go,
that's
no idea what
that's a
you're
fact.
talking
Yeah. I find that there's a lot of people out there just talk and talk and talk, and they have this. Where did that come from? If you're a great talker, you can sell.
And that's the thing, isn't it? People have this idea that if they're good at talking, if they're social, they must be good at selling. And I think nothing could be further from the truth.
But there's a scientific sort of approach to it. It's rapport.
Yeah.
From there, asking those questions, figuring out if the person can afford you. Are they the right person you're speaking to? Does your business align with them?
Yes.
Like one of the questions that I get is, how do you close a sale? And it says 80% of the people you speak to will never buy from you.
Yeah.
That's the reality of it. And also, how do you start closing a sale? When you start fact finding in the very beginning to get to that stage.
Yes.
Yeah.
That done right.
Yeah.
The sale will happen automatically.
Yeah.
They'll have bought into you. They'll have appreciated the fact that you were taking the time to think about them and weren't just trying to sell your wares as it is. And I think often, and again, from my experience, very briefly,
Go ahead.
years ago, I bought a book by a fellow called, it was Jeffrey Gitomer, The Sales Bible. And it's a great resource to have. But like everything, you dip into it and you find out what works for you and what doesn't. At one stage, I was looking through the different closing strategies, and one of them was the alternative close. So at the time, I was selling welding equipment. I was down in Cork with a particular client.
Blue or black?
Well, it was 5 or 10. And I always remember, he's on the other side of the desk, his head's down, he's writing something. And I said, okay, do you want 5 or 10? And he stopped, and it was like slow motion. And he put his pen down, he looked at me and he went, could you just use the alternative close on it? I was really proud of it. I have, yeah. He said, well, if you ever do it again, I'll give you an alternative. You can go out through the door or you can go out through the window.
Yeah, so
but you learn from those things.
I think if you get good at it, I believe and I know when you get good at it, you can actually know if the person has bought before they have even bought as well.
Yes.
That's the beauty of it. Knowing that, and you're kind of looking, touching the product or asking the questions, whatever it be, and you go, they bought, but they haven't.
Yes.
But when you ask for an order, there's something goes on in their mind that actually explodes. That and that's why you do the silence.
Yes.
Wait, he who speaks next loses on it, because that's going on. And if you talk, you're giving them the excuse on it. It's an amazing journey that you've been on. You've as I say, you've probably sold and worked on many projects, and you have found your niche, which is a talent in teaching people and showing people how to give the right presentation. Is that where the book came from, the inspiration from your book? And how long? When did you write the book?
The book was published in February of last year.
Oh, okay.
I'd been writing it on and off for about 3 or 4 years, and as you do, and finding excuses not to write it rather than to write it. And I suppose what I wanted, Joe, was just to have something that was slightly different, because there's a lot of books out there on presentations. People telling you what to do with your hands and how to get the voice right and make eye contact. Mine was about how do you make sure that when you've walked off the stage that people have got the message you want them to get and that they are open to taking the action that you want them to take.
Yeah, because everyone talks about the beginning. We talk about the beginning, the middle and the end, and everyone focuses on when you get up on stage and, interact, making sure you get your audience or open up with a laugh or something and engage them. Where you're going through that, but you're also quite smart in what you're doing is, okay, you've completed this. That's only 80% of it. Yeah. It's the 20% when you walk off that stage. Yeah. That's the part that you kind of go, you look back and you go, okay, I've done a good job, and now I want people to engage with me.
And that's the thing about particularly sales presentations. They're often thought of as a standalone event, and they're not. Stand up here today. I was working with somebody yesterday. They were doing a team presentation today, and whatever happens after the team presentation today, that's when their work really begins. But too often people put the emphasis on the presentation, thinking of it as a standalone event. And of course, the other thing, again, as you're well aware of this, people will put a huge amount of time into preparing the materials that they want to say, and by comparison, put no time into the questions that they should be able to anticipate being asked by the people as a result of what they actually say to them.
That's a good point, yeah.
And they need to put as much time and effort into that.
Yeah, they need to know what you're talking about, really, on it.
So one of the things that I wanted to do, as a way of trying to make this different, was I've created 2 documents. One is a template, so if somebody needed to create a presentation at short notice, they could use this template to pull it together. And while it wouldn't be as good as if you had 3 weeks to prepare for it, they'd still be able to deliver something that delivered a clear, compelling message. The other thing that I did was I created a scorecard. And the idea behind the scorecard is that within presentations, there are elements that people are using that are helping them get their message across, and there are elements that people are using that are hindering getting their message across. So if they're from an industry that has its own language, and they're using all these terms that are familiar to them but not to their audience, hindering getting their message across. If they're using slides that have purely text and it's like a ream of text and they're reading off it, hindering getting their message across. And all I did was I measured all of these different elements against 4 criteria. And in one case a number of years ago, I took it into an organisation. I asked them to give me a couple of their people, and they gave me 3 people who were delivering an average of 100 presentations each per year. And on this scorecard, they scored minus 320. Because they were doing an awful lot of the things that people have been coached to do, that everybody thinks they're supposed to be doing, but they're not actually helping them get their message across. And all we did was we took out some of the elements, replaced them with other ones that would help, and their score went up, and it changed the impact they were having when they were having conversations with their clients.
Yeah, that's food for thought. You have me ponder on that now. On it. Where can people buy the book?
It's available from my website at ARKSpeakingandTraining.com. It's available from all good bookshops, never supposed to say it. It's available from the online sites as well.
As well on it, yeah.
Yeah.
Writing the book, Has it helped your business?
Yes. It's helped the business from two main perspectives, well, three probably. The first is, as you know, you get a bit of credibility when
You've proven
you're
it,
an
yeah.
author.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Secondly, again, as I said earlier, we're experts. We have a huge amount of knowledge and expertise. And this allowed me to select the right pieces and stick with them. And you were talking earlier about training. And when we started out, and I don't know about you, but it could take me a couple of days to get all the material together to make sure if I'm doing this, if I'm doing Persuade on purpose.
You just hit them on a book.
An hour beforehand, it's, the night before, an hour, I have everything I need ready to go.
Yeah.
The other thing it's done for me is because it's given me a set range of material, it now means that I can do the next thing with it, which is to turn it into an online program. I sold it in May of last year to a particular woman, and in July, she's in Scotland, she sent me a letter in July just saying, thank you, bought the book, tried some of the ideas, they worked, I had an important presentation coming up, and it hit the mark exactly as I intended to. And ultimately, that's the job, that's what we're trying to do.
When's the audio out?
Next year.
Next year.
Yeah, I'll try and have it out before your book in February.
Yeah, I'll race you to that then. Yeah, no, because that's the way it's going as well.
It is.
It is. It's the next level on it. And where can people find you?
Oh.
Online, LinkedIn, wherever.
Yeah, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. Although I'm primarily LinkedIn is the main one. As I said, there is the site ARK Speaking and Training. And then available via phone.
Phone, email.
Email, the usual, yeah.
Best business advice you've ever received?
Best business advice. Every quarter I go to one of the local hotels near where I live up in Beaumont. I switch off my mobile phone and I spend the morning asking and answering 3 questions. Question number 1, what am I doing that I need to keep doing? Question number 2, what am I doing that I need to stop doing? And question number 3, what am I not doing that I need to start doing? I think sometimes when we're working in business for ourselves, it's very easy to get caught up in the day-to-day. And I think there's huge value in just being able to take a step back and have a look at what we're doing and find out if we're doing the right things and it's taking us in the direction we need to be going.
So after a lot of crying, you come up with the answers there.
Yes.
Yeah,
a lot of pain.
A lot of pain. Yeah. What other book would you recommend for people to read apart from your own book?
Well, the one I'm reading at the moment is one called The Pressure Principle. It's by a fellow called Alf Ford, or I think it's Alf Ford. That's a surname. But apparently he coached Johnny Wilkinson in the lead up to the 2003 Rugby World Cup final and had given him what he needed to be able to drop kick that winning goal at the time. And I suppose in business there are a lot of times when we find ourselves under pressure. And this book is all about how you can manage that pressure and allow people to perform at their best in those pressurised situations. It's an interesting read at the moment.
Yeah, there must be a sign there to start reading some of them on it.
I suppose what you're looking for is, at elite sport level, you're looking at this idea that people are that extra 1%.
On it, yeah.
I was contacted about a year ago by the Bahrain Merida cycling team, who came second in the Tour de France this year. And what it was their management team, and they wanted to find a way to help them to communicate collectively their message more effectively. And they reckoned that could be the 1% that they needed. They had Vincenzo Nibali and some of the elite cyclists.
Probably got that from your book. Well, that's like I've 3 of my clients are authors, push them to be authors, and they can see even how they are changing themselves because of it. So it is a confidence boost.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference. It really does.
Eric Fitzpatrick, thank you for coming on and sharing some of your insights on Breakthrough Brands. Thank you.
Joe, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Over the years, I've had the pleasure to interview hundreds of people on my business shows, Breakthrough Brands and Business Eye. In doing so, I've put together my top 10 tips that I've picked up from my guests along the way. To discover what these are and how they may benefit you in your business, please click on the link below or go to joedalton.ie/discover.